Happy to introduce myself. My name is Vicki Asher. I'm the head of school at Horizon Academy. We are the only school in the Kansas City area that serves kids with diagnosed specific learning disabilities. The most prevalent of those is dyslexia. So about 85 to 90% of our students will have that diagnosis that attend our school. So just a little bit about the history of Horizon Academy. We started in 1999. It was the result of dedicated parents concerned with the progress of their children in traditional schools. So similar to any effort, it always starts with the parents, I think, from probably from the current science of reading group that you have, as well as the International Dyslexia Association, lots of things. The legislation currently, that has gone through in Kansas, all because of parents. So kudos to the parents who kind of have that foresight and begin that journey. But before we became a school, we started in 1997 with these parents and educators, Midwest Research Institute, just to see if Kansas City could manage a school for, with the population and the demographics. And they took the leap of faith and opened the doors in September of 1999. We had 12 students at the time. Cheryl Kennedy is our founding director, and her husband was she was the founding director and teacher, and he was also a classroom teacher. So at that point, there were 6 students in each classroom. We had an occupational therapist and a speech and language pathologist, and here we are 22 years later. And this year we ended with 100 students. So we continue to grow. We continue to outreach in the community and spread, information and disseminate information about dyslexia and how to best serve students who have that diagnosis. So a little bit about who we are. We are an independent school. Our mission is to empower students with dyslexia and other learning differences to become effective learners and confident self-advocates. When I say an independent school, it means we are accredited, but we are accredited through the Independent Schools Association of Central States. We have chosen not to pursue Kansas Department of Education just because we don't want to. We have our own rigorous expectations and standards, and typically our students don't do well with the state assessments, and I would say about 17, 18 years ago, we decided to let that go, even though people can, the districts can send, we're approved by the Kansas State Department of Education. We just don't receive any federal or state funds, if that makes sense. We serve kids or students in 1st through 12th grade. I would say that last year we had 1 first grader. Most people would probably understand why that is the case. The way districts, with their response to intervention and how kids are diagnosed, those don't typically come till much later. So the greatest influx of students to Horizon Academy is 3rd grade, and then it continues at 4th and 5th grade. And I say this year we have coming in for the 21-22 school year, we will have more 4th and 5th graders this year. So it's just, again, when the rubber hits the road and the expectations, these students are not prepared to meet those expectations. 85% of our students do have a diagnosis of dyslexia. And a little bit about what differentiates us. With 100 students in our classroom, in our school, we have 10 classrooms this year. There are 10 students in a classroom. That's a 5-to-1 student ratio because we also employ a teacher assistant within the classroom setting. Our reading interventions, our math intervention groups are much smaller. So even though there might be 10 students in a class, the Orton Gillingham approach will be delivered typically for those new students, could be 1-to-1, the largest group being probably 4 or 5. Our teachers are all trained in the Orton Gillingham approach. Our school is accredited through the Academy of Orton Gillingham practitioners and educators. It's kind of gone through a name change. It's now called OGA, Orton Gillingham Academy, but that's who we are trained through, and that's who our teachers are certified through them, and our program is accredited through the academy. So we have to meet the expectations every year to maintain that accreditation, and it's continuous education as well as coaching for our teachers and interventionists. We have an individualized whole child approach. We don't have IEPs, we call them individual learning programs. So basically we look at the students' diagnostic reports as they come in, and then we do our own sort of benchmark testing and entry-level tests, curriculum-based assessments to really determine the nitty-gritty, what their academic strengths are, what their academic challenges are, if they need any other services such as speech and language or occupational therapy, then we address those needs. Whether or not they receive those services in the school, we don't meet the same criteria. So if we see a student that might benefit, then we will intervene if necessary. Because we are small, we're a safe and caring environment. I talked a little bit about that accreditation through the Orton Gillingham Academy. We are one of only 17 schools nationwide. And I think I'm not sure, but I think we're the only one west of the Mississippi that has that accreditation. So any questions so far? All right. I might be speaking to the choir here, but the Orton Gillingham approach is considered the gold standard for teaching students with dyslexia. The principles of the Orton Gillingham approach are to provide each child instruction tailored to his or her specific needs. And what differentiates the approach versus a program is that it is tailored to the student. Our teachers are trained to determine what their reading strengths and weaknesses are, and really begin the program or the approach where they would most benefit. So it's not pulling, a lesson and going in order sequentially. We look at the strengths and what that student might need as he approaches his academics, or depending upon his age, and that determines our scope and sequence with every particular child. So it's personalized, it's diagnostic, it's prescriptive. The whole multisensory piece where all the modalities are used. So the visual, auditory, kinetic, and tactile. It's direct and explicit, it's systematic, it is sequential, and it's cumulative. So even when we think a student has mastered it, it's not like we put that away and don't continue to review and continue that as part of our daily lesson. It continues because kids with dyslexia need that repetition, and they need multiple exposures. All right, it's just a few pictures of the students in our program. Blocks can be used for both Orton Gillingham and our multisensory math approach, so you might see those if you ever come to visit. One of the other things that we began realizing as we are working with students is that many of them also struggle in math. I know one of our participants had indicated that her son was gifted in math, and a lot of our kids are. It is the language of math that sometimes is often overlooked with our kiddos. And so the multisensory math approach was developed in partnership with Marilyn Zecker, and who's been working on this for about 25 years. Marilyn Zecker she is a certified academic language therapist, but she was working with students and realized that so many of our students struggle in math as well. And so she was looking for an approach similar to Orton Gillingham that followed those same tenets and same principles, and really couldn't find it. So she and some friends began developing this rich multisensory math approach. It is Orton Gillingham for math. So while the methods were originally created to meet needs of diverse learners similar to Orton Gillingham, I could teach anyone with Orton Gillingham, and I could teach anyone with the multisensory math approach. Again, like Orton Gillingham, it's not a curriculum, it is an approach. So it's how we think about math and how we teach math to students diagnostically, prescriptively, explicitly, with the correct language and hands-on. So everything starts with building it. So we build it, we represent it, it's called CRA, and then we apply the abstract. it's just a whole new way of looking at it. I remember the first time that I went through the training, I'm like, I don't think this way. And so it is for us who have been taught in a different way, it is a whole new way of looking at teaching math that makes really a lot of sense for our kids. So we went through this training about 5 years ago, and have continued to grow in our practice using the multisensory math approach as well. In fact, we have a training going on at our school right now. We also focus on written expression, as you know, and it's often these things don't happen in isolation. Many of our kids come, we call it the trifecta. They have dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. Oftentimes they have some other language challenges, whether it's receptive or expressive language. Sometimes it's gross or fine motor. So there's a lot of things that are happening and coexisting in our students and with their diagnoses. So we also focus on written expression. We start from a foundational approach, building from the sentence level to a paragraph level, to essay level. Really, again, that's diagnostic and prescriptive. We're not going to start a student who is adept at writing. If he's got his sentence levels down, then we're going to move on to paragraphs and build from there. We also embed it in the content area as students progress through the grades. Research suggests that the knowledge that we have produces better writers. So it's giving them something to hang their hat on and to be able to write about. Oftentimes programs are like, write a sentence about your day. We really want them to say, hey, we just talked about the Civil War. Let's start with this sentence starter, and you complete it, using the language that words and the vocabulary that we've learned in our content. Our teachers are going to be going through the Writing Revolution training this summer. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but we're very excited about that. Hey, yay! So we're going to be going through that training starting in August and for about 8 weeks. So we're excited about that. We have had a few teachers trained, and we're seeing amazing progress through that. Again, it's embedded in the content area and makes that writing come alive. So. Handwriting and keyboarding are also part of our program. Again, we believe that direct explicit cursive handwriting instruction is important. It is taught by our occupational therapist. And if you know anything about the research of late, that dyslexia is caused by the disconnect in the auditory and language center. So writing cursive has been shown to be effective in joining those two centers together. Cursive handwriting also is those connected letters, providing for fluid motion, and has demonstrated to help students who have dyslexia and dysgraphia. So we've seen, we've had students who come in with dysgraphia who have that fine motor difficulty, and the cursive handwriting just seems to work. The writing is legible, it's connected, and it improves their reading at the same time. So it's been part of our program since we started the Orton Gillingham approach. It's part of Orton Gillingham. The handwriting is part of the daily lesson. A lot of our kids who come to Horizon Academy also need some social and emotional support, meaning that school's hard, and sometimes they struggle and lose a lot of confidence and esteem. And so our goal for when they return to a more traditional school setting is to equip them with some coping mechanisms and to really help build their own self-awareness. We start at the beginning of the year is really understanding what our diagnoses are. We want our kids to say, hey, I've got dyslexia and this is how it impacts me in the classroom. And this is what I'm going to need to be successful. So knowing that we're all a combination of strengths and challenges, and dyslexia or dysgraphia or ADHD is just one part of what makes them who they are, and really try to build upon their strengths. So building self-awareness, which leads to self-advocacy. We also work on self-regulation, empathy, friendship skills, all those things that create that whole child. We really do transform lives. I forgot to mention earlier that we consider ourselves to be a transition school, meaning that we don't want students to come and stay with us for 12 years. I mean, if they want to, they can. I've had a few, but in my 22 years at Horizon Academy, I think I've had two students who went from 1st through 12th grade. They had a lot of anxiety, however. They needed to be a part of our program. We were a safe learning environment. They're successful and they've gone on to do successful things, but they really needed us for the duration of their school career. But students on average stay about 3 years. Some stay as little as 2, some stay, 4 or 5. It really is dependent upon the student who and their learning profile and their complexities of their learning challenges. So we also work on executive functioning. I would say about 60–70% of our students also have that diagnosis of ADHD, which most of us know is impacting that ability to use our executive functions. So those kids that have, have difficulty paying attention or organizing and planning, these are our ADHD kids. Starting tasks, self-regulation, managing emotions, students who have working memory problems or, processing information is difficult. Our school psychologist, Dr. Chifrening Arrington, is helping us build our own executive function curriculum so that we can provide tools for success for our students. But executive function is part of everything we do. It's also a part of reading and reading comprehension. So learning to build that muscle so that our kids have a tool belt for when they leave. How do I organize myself? How do I, think about time and plan my day? And how do I make this habitual? And again, like everything else, direct and explicit instruction. So we do think about, the whole child when they're with us, even if they are only with us for 3 years. So students will have PE who are in grades 1 through 8 will have PE every day. Unlike other schools who may have it once or twice a week, we really believe in that physical fitness. And, the kids need that brain break throughout the day. They're working hard. I would say kids who have, a diagnosis of a learning difference probably work 100 times harder than a typical learner. And they need to get up and move around. They need to get oxygen to their brain. They need to kind of take their mind off of academics for, a little bit of time during the day. We also have brain breaks throughout the day, as well as outdoor breaks, just to kind of re-energize them. But they will also rotate through the specials like art and music. Makerspace is more about technology and basic coding and working our 3D printing. Executive functioning is part of that rotation, and then social thinking or social emotional learning. Students who attend here as part of tuition, if they require speech and language, or they need occupational therapy, or they need counseling, that all becomes part of their program. So it all happens within the school day. We do have 2 counselors. We have one speech and language pathologist, and we have one occupational therapist and our school psychologist. So you see some of the things that they do in their classes, from music and art. This is actually multisensory math in the classroom. They were working on clock skills, time skills. About 6 years ago, when I became head of school, we also thought, well, if we're going to be going through this transformation and the Orton Gillingham training, we wanted to be able to share it with our community. So we opened our tutoring center 6 years ago. And in that tutoring center, I would say the most prevalent or the most sought after tutoring is the Orton Gillingham, but we do have a good number of students who are looking for math as well. We also offer EF coaching, which was new this summer, provided by our school psych. She works with the parents and the students, because the parents have to be on board. What happens, in those sessions, is shared with the parents. And so there's some communication back and forth on what the expectation in that EF coaching intervention. Just 2 years ago, we started doing our testing, our cognitive and achievement testing. That's also our school psychologist provides that. And then this year, our speech and language pathologist is offering just dyslexia testing. So for folks who say, I don't want the full test, I just want to see if my student has dyslexia. These are the red flags that I've seen. I don't want to go through the whole battery of tests. Our speech and language pathologist can provide those as well. So community outreach. Ever since I've started Horizon Academy, that's been part of our mission, is to bring self-awareness of learning differences, dyslexia, to the greater community. We offer a series of free informative seminars regarding learning differences and other topics throughout the year. They're usually on Thursday nights from 6:30 to 8, and they're on a variety of topics. So I know in October, our fellow of record from the Academy of Orton Gillingham, our trainer and supervisor, will be doing an hour-and-a-half talk about dyslexia, recognizing those signs, about the Orton Gillingham approach. That will be in October. We also have our learning disability simulation. I think Tiffany said you had gone through that simulation, and it's pretty powerful. During the pandemic, we weren't able to bring it to schools, and we really weren't able to do it, but we are now back in with the ability to offer those, provided we all stay healthy. And we'll be, I know that if someone is interested in that learning disability simulation coming to the school, they would just have to call our front office and talk to our communications manager, Brianne Fitzpatrick, and she will be able to get you set up. Best time for those is not during August. I know a lot of schools would like those for professional development as we get back to school, but that's when our teachers are going through their professional development. So usually anytime after, the mid-August throughout the school year. May is our last month of the school year. So really, September through April are good opportunities for those to happen. When we do the LD simulation, we want a minimum of about 35 people. We say that because we want there to be that frenetic energy within the room. It really does help to kind of step into the shoes of our students who are in a classroom of 25 kids and have a diagnosis, and the fidgets and the moving and the noise and all the other distractions that happen and compete for our cognitive strength. So I'm happy to the information is on the slideshow. So my contact information is on the front of that slide. So anyone who is interested can really reach out to me, and I will share that information with Brianne. We also, as community outreach, every summer we offer the Orton Gillingham training and multisensory math, or Orton Gillingham math. So right now we are offering the Orton Gillingham math, and we have about 20 educators who are participating in that week-long workshop. And then at the end of the month, in June 28th through the July 2nd, we'll be offering the Orton Gillingham Classroom Educator, and that is full also. So there are a lot of people who, and teachers and educators and parents who really want to be equipped to meet the needs of their students who have dyslexia. So we will continue to offer those every summer, just because there is a need, and people are hungry for that information and that knowledge and that ability to reach their hard to reach students in the classroom. We are a private school. We are fully funded through tuition, and it's cost a lot to educate a student who is diagnosed with dyslexia. And if they have coexisting diagnoses or co-occurring diagnoses, then it can be overwhelming. And parents who send their students to Horizon Academy know that they're making an investment in their child's future. What I can say is that everything is available here. They'll get the Orton Gillingham approach, the multisensory math approach, the small classroom sizes, the speech and language, the occupational therapy, the counseling, and the executive function coaching. It's all part of our program. We're equipping these students to leave as empowered students. We also raise money. So about 50% of our students do receive some sort of financial assistance. It's need-based financial assistance. So we don't ever want to scare a family away. So that's when we're raising money through our development department, all goes to scholarships and financial assistance for on a need basis. And I think that is all I have. So if you haven't been to our school, this is Milo. He's He's our resident therapy dog, and he really is the emotional support dog for all of the students. Most popular one in the whole school. Anna just graduated this year. She was with us from 7th grade on up, and she actually worked with a program that helped train him. So he's a awesome addition to our school. And when we do surveys of how we can improve our admissions process, Milo always is top out of the list. So he's a wonder dog. So anyway, that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any other information if you have anything that's at the top of your list.
I think a huge question is, how can we clone you and put you in every building? This is
I know, you know, and not just, you know, just our teachers and the heart that they bring to everything that we do. And yeah, I mean, what we know is that the approaches that we use at our school are really just good teaching. They empower every student to be a better learner. So, and, you know, we're always learning and growing as educators too. Just like I said, you know, that's part of our model and our foundation. And I think it's why our teachers stick around, because they know that, you know, they're getting the best professional development as well. I can't put a teacher in a classroom unless they have the Orton Gillingham training. I can't put a teacher in a classroom unless they're multisensory math. Now that we're going through the writing revolution, you know, that will also be a part of the expectation of our teachers as they enter that classroom. So I would love all pre-service teachers to receive that same sort of expectation, those same approaches, so that they can, you know, impact those students, not just teach the high flyers and the typical learners, but every student in the classroom.
It's amazing.
I have a couple questions for you. One is, so for participants in the summer school, the learning center, can that be attended alongside a traditional school program? Or is it just for the students who are enrolled in Horizons?
Oh, no. That's for anyone in the community. And most of the people in our tutoring center are community members. So we have students from Shawnee Mission, Blue Valley, you know, some of the local private schools and parochial schools. We have about 50 students at the tutoring center this summer. Throughout the school year, we usually have about, you know, 30 to 40, depends on the number of tutors that we have available. We would be full all the time with the number of people that are looking for that kind of tutoring. We also have a South location. I don't know if any of you are from the Kansas City area. You are, Tiffany. We work out of Dr. Karen Jordan's office. I'm not sure if you know Dr. Jordan, but she's right off 123rd and Metcalf, in that medical area over there, across from Costco on the other side of Metcalf, or Blue Valley Parkway, Metcalf.
Okay.
So we have 2 to 3 tutors who work out there during the school year too.
And then do you guys take visits from people like me if I want to just come and see what you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I were talking about a road trip, so. So it's so incredible to think about teachers being that highly trained in Orton Gillingham and in the multisensory math and writing and executive functioning, and just, it is really that whole child kind of perspective, and just would be really cool to kind of see it in action.
Yeah, for sure. Call me, set up an appointment in the fall. Our June program, we only have one summer program. It's in June, so we only have a couple of weeks left. But when we get back and moving in the fall, please give me a ring when you're in town. I'm happy to take you for a walk through the school if you wanted to stay for, you know, part of a day just to see, you know, some of the things that are happening in the classroom. Absolutely.
And then my last question is just on data, like how kids are successful when they exit your school and go back to a traditional school setting.
You know, it's really hard to measure kids who have that diagnosis. You know, when you give them a standard, you know, school-based, you know, test, we do use AIMSweb. I don't like it because it's the kind of test that our kids don't do well on. And we're always evaluating. In fact, that was part of our meeting today with my school psychologist. I'm like, this doesn't give us the data that we need. We do a lot of curriculum-based assessments or Orton Gillingham-based assessments. Their daily records and things like that are what really drives our determination of whether a student's ready to return. But the other critical piece is that self-advocacy piece. So really understanding who they are as a learner and being able to communicate that with their teachers on their own. While we want our parents to be advocates, for our students, the most important voice is the student's voice. So we do collect data. Our curriculum-based data is much more valuable to us as interventionists than any sort of map testing or other type of testing that's which our kids don't typically do well on.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What is your process for applying? So I'm just interested for my daughter. So what would that look like?
So I would recommend for anyone who would like to apply to go to our website and click on the admissions button. It walks you through the entire process. The other option is there is an inquiry form on there. So you would just click on the inquiry and it would take you through maybe a half dozen questions. And then Laura Mombello, who is our enrollment manager, would reach out to you to set up that first step in the process. If getting to the website or a personal phone call is better, you can always call Laura. And she's in Monday through Friday and would be happy to take your call as well. The first part of the process is the inquiry, and then you would meet with Laura, who is our admissions and enrollment manager, and me, and we would just talk about your student and kind of get a history of how things are going and what your goals are from a parent perspective. She would take you on a tour of the school. You would get kind of an idea of who we are as a school, a lot of what we've talked about today, but more personalized. And then we would want you to send your diagnostic reports in. So we would want to take a peek at that. We can't accept every student. Students have to, meet the criteria of students that we can help. And because it is such a huge investment, we want to make sure it is a good fit. So we don't accept students who have behavioral challenges because that would be unfair to the other students within the classroom setting. When you walk into our program, there's a lot going on, but it's also a structured learning environment. And, so we want to maintain that climate within the classroom. So once we get through all of that, then, and you and Laura decide that the next step would be for the student to come in and kind of experience the same thing. She, or I think you said your daughter, she would meet with me, and Milo, she would meet with our principal, our counselor. If there was some dysgraphia or a fine motor, we would, the occupational therapist is often there and we might get her input. Sometimes the speech and language pathologist would be a part of that screening process as well. And then Laura would give just a basic screening type of test just to kind of get an idea of where her grade level equivalents are so that we can kind of see where they match up to her diagnostic report as well. And that kind of just lays the foundation. Then the admissions committee meets and we make a determination of whether or not that student, and we believe that we could develop a program for that student, and then the communication of acceptance would be extended through email as well as a phone call.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else that I've good questions. I didn't put those in the slides and I probably should. And I probably should have put a link to our website for you to be able to do that. But
we can add it to the group page. That'll be, when I add the recording, so we can do that too. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah. It sounds amazing. Vicki, you've done so much. Thank you so much for your time. And
Well, I've been there since the end of 1999. So I started off as a teacher assistant, and then moved into as a teacher, and then moved into administration, and have now been the head of school since 2015. So I love what I do. I love the transformative, the way we've transformed lives. I love the way Horizon Academy has also transformed the way we approach education. We've always used an approach, but to teaching students with dyslexia, but we continue to grow because learning really never stops for us. And the more science and the more we become equipped, the better we are as educators. So. All right, well, it's been a pleasure. It was nice meeting all of you. And if I can answer any other questions, let me know. If you want to send, an email, or I think at the front of the page, we should have the website address on there and my email address. So that should get you there. I guess let me exit out of this and then we can make sure and go back. And if not, I could always edit and put it in there. Yep, the website is there, and the telephone numbers on that page as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions, and I'm happy to be a resource. Happy to come to your schools if you live close enough. We've gone as far as Topeka. I'm not sure about Wichita, but our alpha simulation, we are available in about a 45-minute diameter around the circumference around the city. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.